comments and information about this meeting. And we started just hosting these InfoCasts, basically to make it easier for people to get information and the committees to get it out to them. So that's tonight's topic. Our general format is to allow the presentation. I think, Steve, folks, maybe 20 or 25, 30 minutes to do presentations on all three chapters. And then we'll open it up for Q&A to everybody. If you want to ask questions during the presentations, put them in the Zoom chat. Once we get to the Q&A, raise your hand and Michael will either read out your chat question or let you unmute you so you can ask the question. So I think with that introduction, Steve, it's your show.
All right. Thank you, Lance and Michael, for having us here tonight. You're doing a great job with the Town Meeting Members Association, promoting awareness and hoping that town meeting members listen in a little bit before town meeting so they can understand what we're trying to accomplish. Before we get started, I really want to introduce some of the members of the Committee on Government Regulations who are here with me tonight, who've done a lot of work, put in a lot of time and effort, focused all on the goal of making sure our bylaws are accurate, reflect current practice, and easy to understand. So on my far right, Megan Blackwell from Precinct 7, she'll be discussing our updates to Chapter 2. Next to her, also to my right, Karen Connolly will be discussing Chapter 11, Anti-Litter. She's from Precinct 3. And then finally, we'll have Meredith Mason-Crowley discuss from Precinct 1, discussing Chapter 1, General Provisions. So before we delve into those topics, I just want to remind everyone that Lance, you did a nice job of the overview there, but we started this last fall. We went through all the bylaws, 24 bylaws at the time. We went through them all. There were a number of chapters that we did not recommend changes for. There were a number that were recommended to the Springtown meeting. Springtown meeting did many of those, but not all. And so we've got a little bit of work left. We actually had 5 chapters that were referred back to us for the fall. 2 of those were not recommending changes in the fall, Chapter 9 and then Chapter 13. But tonight we're going to hear about the 3 articles that are being put forward, 16, 17, and 18, that again will impact Chapters 1, 2, and 11. So thank you, ladies, for all your time and effort and commitment to the town of Winchester and this bylaw review process. And let's start actually with Meredith. I think I went in reverse order, but Meredith, if you can kick things off, that would be great.
Okay. Hi, my name is Meredith Crowley. I had Chapter 1, which is General Provisions. And General Provisions is generally the introductory paragraph. Remember that worksheet that I sent you to put in? So we're going to put up in front of you just sort of a worksheet that breaks down those areas that were addressed. I'm not going to read the entire worksheet to you, but it will be a handout available at the time of town meeting.
With our technical difficulty.
That's okay. I'll keep going.
Thank you.
Our Chapter 1 generally was composed of 4 different sections, and that was a title, an explanation of amendments, definition of terms, and our town seal. But we are proposing to just expand it. It will go from 4 sections to 7 sections. I have to mention that I did work with Phil McGonigal to review some of the questions that he had in the spring. So most of the changes occurred in Section 3, definition of terms. And when these definitions were looked at in the spring, we talked about duplication of terms and maybe bringing all the terms into the bylaws. But in this case, Bill recommended not to duplicate them. And in some cases, he eliminated the duplicated terms that were in the bylaws and the charter at the same time, leaving the terms in the charter and just removing them, duplicate terms, out of the bylaws. So that was a key feature of indefinitions. But also at the same time, we added a number, we did other changes. And we added definitions, which included new terms such as business day, the initialization of Mass General Law for MGL, a commonly used term sidewalk. Wait a minute, Mike, while you pull it up.
No, I'm getting there.
Here it is. There it is.
So I think that's what you're sharing, that, and scroll.
Here we go. So adding some of these terms was really important. In our review of the bylaws, it was confusing to some people how we calculated time when we put together a bylaw and how many days that was to be done. And one particular chapter, chapter 14, used the marker of business day. And that wasn't a common term in our definition of terms in the introductory. So we decided to bring it in and define what an actual business day is. And I have to thank Bill for doing an excellent job, making sure that we have all the citations for that. And then there are other terms, Mass General Law, we pretty much just abbreviated general laws. Sidewalk, this is a term that is used repeatedly throughout the bylaws, so we added it. That may come in handy in the future as other issues may come into play with use in some laws, such as disability laws. Town website, we had to change and update how we notify people, and we had to define what the town website would be, and eliminate the use of bulletin boards. That's what the methodology that the town had to post all notices on. So we added town website. If you want to scroll down some more, we updated the term happy carriage simply by adding the initialization of Mass General Law. So you'll see any changes highlighted and underlined. Refuse, there's a clarification of that term, and that clarification was put in because of sometimes it's a noun, sometimes it's a verb, and it can be read as refuse or refuge. And so you will see underneath, underlined, as it specifies, how to read that word when referring to waste products. 2/3 vote. 2/3 vote was out of alphabetical order, so we simply put it where it should be. That was a format change. And the next list of terms there, these terms, chartered, majority vote, town agency, town bulletin board, and town officer, are both in the bylaws and in the charter. And these will no longer be in the bylaws. They remain in the charter. And keep going. Here's a new section which helps people understand how town business is calculated under days to when a bylaw is put through, how business is calculated to be completed. And it explains if something is 7 days or less, it's calculated according to business days. And if it's over, it turns into calendar days. We had changes to number and gender, and this specifically explains how we have stopped using gender pronouns and go on to use gender neutral representations between office title and role. And the last one, non-substantive alphanumeric changes. This will allow the town clerk to go in and make any numerical changes that she might in the bylaws when some new bylaw is added. This may also be working concept with the new bylaws 360. So but she does agree with that change. And that's it.
Thank you, Meredith. Let's move on to chapter 2, Megan.
Sure. So while Michael is bringing up the slides, I'll thank Ed Levesque for his work on this chapter. In the spring, he did most of the work for chapter 2. And then now that he has stepped off our committee, I led the extra work we had this summer. So my second slide summarizes the proposed changes to bylaw chapter 2 under Article 17. So if we go to, second slide, perfect. There's a clarification of whom may be recognized to speak before town meeting, warrant article requirements for those articles requesting appropriations are specified, the timing and distribution of warrant articles and backgrounds is changed, and there's a clarification inserted on the process for appointing members of our committee, the Committee on Government Regulations. And there's a proposed deletion of 2 inactive standing committees. Going on to the next slide. So the first change is to clarify who may participate in debate. So it's Chapter 2, Section 3, Rules of Procedure, Section 3.3. So it presently states the moderator shall recognize any non-resident or minor, provided the town meeting so authorizes. And it was suggested that sometimes the moderator recognizes residents who aren't town meeting members as well. So the proposed change is now to include that resident category. And the thought is that if you have a resident category and a non-resident category, it's a Venn diagram, that's everyone. You no longer have to specify minors as well. So that's our rationale for this change. Next slide, section 3.8 of chapter 2, preparation for town meeting. So I won't read it all, but the existing bylaw states the requirements for warrant articles and what help may be offered if so requested. And what we're proposing to add is that warrant articles that request an appropriation of funds
You done? You're done,
shall include in the background estimates of the
I think that was
cost.
it.
Could you please mute? Warrant articles that request appropriation of funds shall include in the background estimates of the cost, duration of anticipated funding, and proposed funding sources, as well as estimates proposed under the previous section will be shared with the Finance Committee to review and to report to town meeting on the budget and tax impacts, if any. Now, in the warrant that you may have been mailed, there were extra numbers. It was 1.1.1 and 1.1.2. So those are Scribner's errors, and we'll request that they're changed. But now let me go deeper into these changes. So for 1.1, the rationale is to increase clarity and to standardize the way information on proposed expenditures is presented to town meeting. Let me just take a moment to draw an analogy because this stands out in my mind. So on the next slide, you'll see it for those of you with credit cards and credit card statements. A change a few years ago now requires the payment amount and timelines to be shown on your monthly credit card statement. So if you make only the minimum payment, how long will it take you to pay off? And what will the total estimated amount be? And if you make a larger payment, when will you pay it off? And how much are you estimated of paying? So of course you can calculate all this information from your standard credit card statement, but this is like a shortcut, like a one-stop place you can find it all. So we're proposing something similar, and go to the next slide. the format can change, but here are potential examples drawn from previous warrant articles, and I list the citation here. So the idea is that the cost estimate will be in the warrant article. The estimated duration of funding, for example, it's a single year expenditure, and then the funding source, be it free cash, a loan from the MWRA, a loan from our water and sewer enterprise fund, or some combination, say money from free cash and from an overlay surplus. Well, each of these funding mechanisms has a different impact on the town's budget and the overall tax to residents. And the idea is that these numbers would be shared with the finance committee. Go to the next slide. And have the finance committee review the estimated cost and use the budget and forecasting model that they already use to project the budget and tax impacts of these expenditures. So, oh, one slide ahead, but that's fine. So the original motivation for this came from the predecessor of TMMA, the Communication Study Committee, and I'm copy and pasting from their report. This was, I think, the second recommendation to require budget and tax impact estimates for all major articles. And so this was closer to the language used in the spring, and we tweaked it a little bit, but the intent of the recommendation, oh, the slide change. If you go back to 9, please.
My apologies.
No.
One ahead.
So,
Next.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you.
So this is the original motivation for this article. And in the spring, the language was closer to the first bullet. Now we've changed it a bit, but the rationale that I explained is really spelled out here in the paragraph below. And I won't read it again, but it's here for reference. Okay, now on to slide 10. On Chapter 2, Section 3.8.2 warrant article requirements, we're now inserting new language so that the main motion and supporting report to be delivered to town meeting members, that's already as it is now, but we're inserting the finance committee at least 7 days before the first session of town meeting, unless prohibited by applicable law. And also we're inserting an electronic version of each main motion and supporting report shall be made available on the town's website at least 10 days before the meeting is to convene. So the rationale here is to make these materials available to members of the finance committee who are not town meeting members. This used to happen somewhere along the way. It stopped, maybe by oversight, but sometimes FinCom members aren't town meeting members. So this makes sure they're also sent the materials to review. And then the second part about posting an electronic version of the motion and supporting background facilitates access to this information by making them available as soon as they're sent to the printer. So we spoke with the town manager's office and she felt, well, so the prior town manager and her staff felt that 10 days is a reasonable time frame for posting the material. Okay, moving on, the last part now. Chapter 2, Section 4, standing committees. So 4.3, the Committee on Government Regulations, we're cleaning up the language to really accurately reflect the process that's presently in place. So right now at your precinct meeting, a vote is taken to nominate someone to join our committee. And then the moderator reviews the list and approves it or tweaks it or asks for a change. So again, this language is slightly different because there's one extra from each precinct in the warrant article you got, but this is the intent. The Committee on Government Regulations shall consist of 8 town meeting members, 1 to be nominated by and from the town meeting members from each precinct, and to be considered for appointment by the moderator for terms of 3 years, so arranged that as nearly, that should be an equal number of terms as possible shall expire each year. So that's my own mistake. It's correct in the warrant article. Don't worry. And as I mentioned, the rationale is that this accurately reflects the process presently used. Okay, next slide. Chapter 2, Section 4, standing committees. So there are 2 committees that our committee is proposing to delete. Not saying anything against those committees or what their duties have been, but just reflecting the fact that these committees have been inactive for over 20 years, per our town clerk, Mary Ellen Marshall. So the first is the Human Services Committee. What they previously have done is listed here. The next slide summarizes the past duties of the Committee for Equal Opportunity. And in addition to being inactive for over 20 years, the bylaw itself states that the committee shall remain in existence through the end of the 1985 Springtown meeting unless further extended by a vote of town meeting. That was not done, so we're just cleaning up the bylaws. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Megan. And then we'll next move over to Karen Connolly for chapter 11. I do want to make a note about chapter 11 that we took a slightly different tact in terms of drafting. So as you will see in the warrant book, you will see that for chapters 1 and 2, there are strike through, bolded and underlined text. There were so many different changes that were non-substantive and alphanumerical with chapter 11. We decided to strike chapter 11 in its entirety and replace it with new text. Now, this new text is what you'll see in the warrant book under article, I think it's 18. And Karen is going to go through the changes. We have plenty of information on all the changes. Just from a drafting perspective, it seemed a little easier for us to put it all in at once rather than moving different pieces around. A lot of striking through, a lot of bolding, a lot of underlining. We took this approach and we hope town meeting appreciates this approach and appreciates all the time and effort that Karen and others have put into this effort. Final point is that Karen worked very closely with the Board of Health on developing the updates to chapter 11. So without further ado, Karen, please take it away.
Thank you. Well, and as Steve said, I think you might look and see an entirely new chapter and feel like, oh my God, you know, what happened here? This is so different. Well, the answer is it's really not so different. It's a question of clarification. We cleaned up a lot of definitions. We actually alphabetized definitions. And not only did we work closely with the Board of Health voted to co-sponsor this with us. So as much as anything, this is really a Board of Health suggestion. So I'm not going to go through everything. We do have in the report that Steve has produced, which is really excellent, in the appendix, all of the specific changes we made. I'm going to go through some of the ones that I think are probably the most obvious or perhaps the most definitive. So, and I do not have a fancy PowerPoint, but I promise you I will have something for town meeting, but at the moment I do not. In Article 1, we make it clear that aircraft is manned or unmanned, which we did to make it clear that drones are included in this. So drones can't drop litter, just as airplanes and other things can't. We also rewrote the definition of newspaper. Newspaper was not clearly defined as it is in the 21st century. So we went and did that. We also updated the definition of park to remove the word park from the definition. So we found a lot of those things as we were looking at definitions. They just hadn't been written clearly or they were redundant. In several of the sections, we added the word prohibited to the title. So for example, in section 2, litter in public places now becomes litter in public places is prohibited. We're trying to make it more obvious to people. If they're just scanning this, how quickly can they see what they need to see? I mean, truly, I think of all of them, this is a bylaw that relies on an awful lot of common sense. One could perhaps have called this whole bylaw, just don't litter, do what your mother told you to do, put trash in trash cans and be a nice person. In section 4, we did add something that is perhaps a little bit more, I wouldn't go so far as to say substantive, but again, brings it up to the 21st century. It read, sweeping of litter into gutters is prohibited. We added the phrase, blowing as with a leaf blower litter into any place. So if there was any question that you shouldn't be blowing trash into the street, we thought that that would make it clear. Section 7, truckloads causing litter. We struck the phrase truckloads and replaced it with vehicles. Again, more universal. And we added the word prohibited. So truckloads causing litter are prohibited. Section 8, we just struck duplicative language. We didn't change 9. And 10 and 11, we again added that word prohibited to the end of the title to make it clear what we were saying. So again, I think you hear this from me over and over again. What we were looking for was clarity, ease in reading, and if you're looking for definitions, now everything is alphabetized, and I think that makes a great deal more sense. The rest of these, I'm just going to say again and again, we struck words, for instance, like property and replaced it with premises. We struck the word property in section 17 and section 18. So we're trying to make everything, it's going to be the same as you read through it. So I would say really that is all I have to offer on this. And I'm happy to take very specific questions if anyone has it, but I would refer you to the appendix in our report because it is very clear what everything was. And again, coming up with the new bylaw does not mean that we have made changes in how litter should be dealt with in the town. We've just made it clearer to understand.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay, good. Thank you all very much. We'll go to Q&A. We have a list of questions. Some of them people put into the chat. Try to work through those, and then we'll open the floor. If you think of a question you'd like to ask, either by typing it in a chat or on being unmuted, please raise your hand. There's a button on the Zoom call that will let you click and raise a hand so that you can be recognized, so that we know you want to ask a question. So I'll turn it over to Michael to read out the questions, and Steve, you can volunteer one of your 3 experts to answer them.
Roger Wilson Jr. shared sidewalks should include bicyclists and pedestrians. By the way, everybody, this is being recorded and I'll gladly share it with this group so that any of these notes can be reviewed later. Roger Wilson also noted, would this costing out requirement apply to labor contract motions? The Greenway Committee has also not met for years.
So I think that's both for chapter 2. Thank you, Roger, for the questions. For the contracts, yes, anything that involves appropriations should be analyzed for the impact to the budget and to taxes. And from what I know about the contracts, just analyzing the cost should be fine because it's not getting into anyone's salary or any of the particulars that can't be discussed, but just the overall number that town meeting votes. The second question about the Greenway Committee, interesting. I don't remember reading about that in the bylaws, but if I missed it, please let us know, Roger.
Yeah, sidewalks, that definition is in chapter 1. Meredith, is there anything you'd like to add?
So then the comment was that it should include bicycles and
Bicyclists and pedestrians, please.
didn't we talk about bicycles on sidewalks at one point? They are allowed. The question is it motorized bicycles? Did we clarify that? Remember that discussion?
And where was it? I remember it was Ruth Tremarkey who brought it up, but I don't remember what chapter.
I think that fits into chapter one, we can go back and review that. So thank you for
Yeah,
the
I'll take a look
suggestion.
at that.
We did discuss it, but we can, we'll have to review some of the notes and go back and be prepared for town meeting to answer that. And if, who was that answered? We can follow up directly if they'd like.
It was
Roger.
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 Okay.
I'll be in touch with you, Roger.
There was a kind note from Mary Ellen Marshall thanking Megan, very informative. Carol Savage offered a thought about pinning to enhance the Zoom experience. From Carol Savage, the language of all these motions are in the warrant on the town meeting page of the town website. For those of you on the Zoom call, there is a hyperlink in the chat. Mary Ellen Marshall shared, I can research the Greenway Committee. I think it could be sunset.
Thank you.
And then Philip Frateroli shares, Greenway is not an Article 2 committee. If there's any other chats, I'm happy to read them, or please raise your hand. We'd be delighted to hear from you. I think at this point, if you have a thought and you'd like to share it, unmute and have at.
This is Roger Wilson. I just offer I think an easy way to include bicyclists, which would be to say and bicyclists except where expressly forbidden.
Roger, I don't have the benefit of seeing the bylaws in front of me right now, but I would pull it up. It came from chapter 8. So I want to take a look at that and have a moment to have a chance to go through everything discussed on bicycles and whether or not it's pertinent to put it, in that definition, but we'll check it out.
And
Thanks
then
for
another question is there a definition for path? Because we now have a distinct category used by thousands of people a day, or about 1,000, which is the tri-community path.
Well, one of the criteria in having these words in the definitions isn't necessarily, is path used frequently? Is it a common term used frequently throughout the bylaws? So I would have to check that out as well. So I will look.
Thanks.
Yep.
And maybe what Roger was implying with path is that the definition of sidewalk is similar to path, because the path would be used by pedestrian travel and travel otherwise permitted by chapter 8.
Okay. Because I'll look into it and see what comes up.
We have a couple of other chat items that I'd love to share, please. Carol Savage, thank you all so much for the work and for hosting this session. Bill McFadden notes another kind note. Thank you for the work and the presentation. Kathy Bodie, thank you for the work to clarify the language in these bylaws. Much appreciated. Lauren says, if including bicyclists, exclude motorized.
There you go.
Carol Savage shares one thought in 3.8.2.2. Should you add printed before the copy that needs to be provided 7 days in advance?
Good question. I don't think we were changing that, but we can definitely look to see if that would clarify.
Kathy Bodie, just 1 second, please, Roger, and I'll get right to you. Thank you. Kathy Bodie asks or says, can electric bicycles or scooters be used on sidewalks?
As I said, I believe we talked about that, and we need to go back and review that. There was discussion about the speed at which these bicycles operate, so we will look into that.
Thanks. Roger, the floor is yours.
So I just wanted to caution you about trying to legislate about electric bikes. They're currently electric bikes are selling more bikes are electric than regular bikes in sales right now, and there's three different types. Um, and we're the sort of the horse is out of the barn on electric bikes. So I would recommend staying silent on that for now and letting town meeting wrestle with it probably for hours.
Yeah, that may be one that falls outside of the scope of this committee.
Carol, you have a thought?
Yeah, just to clarify the suggestion to add the word printed in 3.8.2.2 is just to differentiate between the electronic copy that's to be provided 10 days in advance versus the printed copy that needs to provide it 7 days in advance.
Right, I circled exactly where you are referring, Carol. So I think the operative word is delivered. So right now it says each main motion and supporting report to be delivered to town meeting members and finance committee at least 7 days before the first session of town meeting. So I think our task will be to ask those more informed than we are what delivered means, if it means by mail, and I think there's reference to that elsewhere in the bylaws.
Okay, so the distinction is who it's going to, I guess.
No, it's how it's delivered. So if it's delivered by mail, then it would have to be printed. But if electronic delivery suffices, then maybe specifying printed would be necessary.
Okay.
Is my quick take on
No,
it.
I get it. Thank you.
We did get a little information on the fly here that bikes are not allowed on sidewalks under Massachusetts general law.
We didn't hear you, Roger.
That's not true. They're expressly allowed in Winchester, and they're they're allowed in under Massachusetts law. So
We'll follow up. Thank you, Roger.
Brian, please go ahead.
Thank you. Can you everybody hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry. In the litter section 4 about blowing leaves and stuff into the gutter. I mean, people do that all the time and then they clean it up. I just think that the way it's written now, you're not allowed to blow it into the gutter. You could clean off your lawn, put it on the street and just shovel it in and out. So I don't know if that's and someone could just say, oh my goodness, this person did it and get all upset. I don't know if that's the right wording.
Okay. So as it is written now, it reads, no person shall sweep litter into any public place. So I think if you're talking about leaves, I don't know that leaves were what we were
If
referring.
you're cleaning your lawn, and it's just sometimes it's easier to clean up stuff on a pavement or in the gutter than it is
Are leaves
off
litter?
of your.
I think that's the question.
Are leaves litter?
What do you think?
Leaves are not defined as litter in this bylaw. They were not previously, and we have not added leaves to it. So.
I guess I was using leaves in a generic spot. I mean, again, if you're cleaning off your lawn and there's trash on your lawn and you blow it out to the street and then clean it up, that's fine, or that should be fine.
Yeah. Okay,
Just a thought.
okay, all right, thank you.
We have a few chat items that I'd like to catch up with, please. And Sarah shares Motorized bikes and scooters are allowed on a multi-purpose roadway. It's really a roadway, not a sidewalk. Mary Ellen Marshall offers town attorney can advise on bikes on sidewalks as well. And Sarah further shares also the name of it is the Tri-Community Greenway or Multi-Purpose Tri-Community Greenway. It's actually a bike path. Lauren says, does delivered need to be a definition?
So we will confer with those more informed than we are, and look elsewhere in the bylaws. I seem to recall reading, maybe it's like chapter 1 or early chapter 2 that we change. I think it's early chapter 2 that has that. So good question, Lauren. And Carol, who initially brought that up. So we'll do our homework and get back to you.
And Sarah's offered a further thought above. I meant it's not formally a bike path, it is a multi-purpose roadway.
Yeah, we did have a discussion. I will say we did have a discussion about sidewalks versus bike paths specifically. And they're two distinct and separate things. That was our conclusion. Bike paths, I didn't think we found that in our bylaws. So I think again, that's something I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, committee members, but that's my recollection. That was my recollection that we did have a discussion. Sidewalks are one thing, bike paths are another thing. Bike paths are dealt with through zoning, I think. That I'm going from recall here, but I think bike paths are handled separately, not within the bylaws for us. It was really not a subject for discussion for our committee.
Roger, you had a further thought?
Well, just an observation that the sidewalk along Washington Street is also part of the bike path. In the sidewalk on Florence Street is also part of the bike path. The bike route goes right along Florence and Holland and so forth down to the high school. I mean, they're not all that separate, but it's a hot political question. If you want to delve into it, you'll slow the whole process down.
We'd rather not.
But thanks for giving us the opportunity.
But we will reconvene and we will follow up with some further feedback on this question of sidewalks and paths and the like. So thank you for pointing that out.
Kathy Bodie has an entry in chat regarding place of business requirement to keep sidewalks in front of the business litter free. Should they also be responsible to trash in the gutter next to the sidewalk? How is this currently being enforced?
It is enforced by complaints made to the Board of Health. And we did not change or add to that.
The reason I'm asking this question, you hear me?
You're good, Kathy.
Is that I was downtown yesterday and the amount of trash in the gutter next to the curb throughout downtown was amazing. I spent some time, I'm not patting myself, but I spent some time picking it up, but I was thinking, why would we just not require that as well?
I do recall we had a discussion on this, that we felt that if it was in the road, it was on public property and it was then up to the town to clean it up. As I recall, that is where our discussion came down, that it became then, we couldn't require merchants, private businessmen, to keep public property clean. I don't know if that's.
But isn't the sidewalk a public area,
Yes,
particularly downtown?
yes.
So how
Yes.
do we distinguish between the two? Other than say sidewalk?
Hmm.
I think it's really, I think it was really just the physical connection. So the sidewalk out front of the existing business to us, there was a nexus there. Whereas in the road, less so.
The trash often was related to the purpose of the business. So if you know, it was candy or there were coffee cups or plastic drinks.
And there might have been extra this weekend because there was a Halloween event on Saturday, I believe, so.
True.
Relative to this part of the discussion, Roger Wilson offers sidewalks are public property and Mary Ellen Marshall offers sidewalk is also public property. Health Department can weigh in prior to the town manager's public hearing.
We do have a bylaw regulation governing removal of snow and ice from sidewalks in front of businesses. I don't know.
I'm gonna say chapter 8.
Yeah, I think you'd have to go back and check the town council about whether that extends to litter or could be extended to litter.
And Sarah circled back to an earlier part of the discussion and she says, I think the distinction I'm making is from the Mass DOT. Only portions of sidewalks and roadways are part of the route, but electrified scooters and electric bikes are most certainly supposed to be allowed on this commuter route. Roger offers an additional thought, which is the town frequently sweeps downtown.
Carol has her hand raised.
Oh, sorry, Carol. It's all yours.
New topic. So I just had this thought. I'm very much in favor of the new language about, or the new proposed language about providing financial information along with motions. And the only question I have is how does this change the process from what presently happens? Does this put more of the onus on the proponent to work with whatever the respective boards are, whether it be the select board and the finance committee or the town manager, to say where for a particular project might the funding come from, right? So how does it happen now versus how it, maybe give an example of, you know, a type of project where maybe the proponent doesn't know for sure where the funding is coming from. How would it happen now? And how does it happen now and how would it happen under this?
Sure. I think this is probably 99.5% related to departments and committees requesting appropriations, so not citizen petitions. But now I don't think there's a consultation with FinCom about, well, what would be the best route, but there are discussions by probably with town manager, with select board, maybe with the treasurer. I know the assistant town manager was definitely involved in like navigating, and oh my goodness, Stacy Ward, the controller, I'm sure she has opinions on how to best or which funds should be used. And so I'm not proposing any changes to that, but just making the information that's in the warrant article more concise and clear and maybe consistent in different warrant articles. Because when I was pulling from the old warrant article from 2024, from the spring, to make that example slide, it struck me how, you know, we're asking for similar funds from, you know, a loan from MWRA versus a loan from water and sewer retained earnings. Those both have very different impacts to the town budget. And I'm sure there were decisions on what to do, but that's not often as clear to town meeting members. And I think this process would standardize it and run it through the same model and make the assumptions more clear. So that was a long answer to the vision here, is not to change the upfront process and make it any more work, but just take the work that's been done and make it clearer to town meeting members and the implications to the budget and to property taxes.
Okay, thank you.
It would be more accurate to say the overall tax. It's not just property tax, but the tax levy.
We have
Thank
two new entries in the chat. The first from Roger. A big problem with costing out of contracts is the failure to account for step and track, new columns, etc., as part of the contract.
Agreed.
Additional thought from Sarah regarding the language giving the moderator veto power over appointments to town meeting related boards. I think that veto power is new. I don't think that the new language reflects the current practice at all, because current practice seems to be that the precincts elect various appointments.
Excellent question, Anne. Since we are so fortunate to have moderator Phil Frateroli with us, if he is still here, could you please comment? Maybe he's not still here. Oh, well, he's still logged in. So it is the current process, Anne, and there's an example. So earlier tonight, I mentioned Ed Lebeck. So he is in precinct 2 and he stepped down, and to fill the vacancy, it was Philip's suggestion, oh, let's get someone with a legal background to join our committee, because that perspective could be helpful. And so we found a great attorney to join our ranks, Laura Coella. Well, maybe I'm
Coella,
Coella, thank you. I thought I mispronounced her last name. So he did have his hand in that, which is fine, but the bylaw as it is written now didn't reflect that. So this change is bringing it to current practice. And it's a different question if town meeting members don't think veto power is appropriate, but that's not the question we're asking here with this change, because each of us were nominated and elected by our precinct during that precinct meeting at the first night of town meeting. And then those nominations must be approved by the moderator.
That is current practice, as I recall.
I have nothing new in the chat. Does anyone have additional thought? And Mary Ellen did offer a thought saying that that's correct, so thank you.
Oh, and Anne thought that maybe Philip was muted?
Yeah, I saw that, but I left that to Philip to resolve.
Okay.
I have a question. Hand up. So what we're talking about is Committee on Government Regulations, right? Not precinct chair or clerk or Committee on Rules. This is when the precincts, the old practice when I was precinct chair was that the moderator appointed that role. We often nominated someone for the moderator to consider, but it was written that the moderator shall appoint that person, those people from each precinct. We thought it was helpful if we nominated someone and then the moderator approves it. So I don't think this is a radical departure from what we currently do. That's just my thought.
That's correct.
Yes, agreed. Thank you, Carol, for that comment. I was appointed to Committee on Government Regulations just a year or so ago, maybe a year and a half ago. So it's pretty fresh in my memory. That was the process that I was nominated by Precinct 4, and then the official stamp of approval came from the moderator saying, yes, Stephen, you can be part of the Committee on Government Regulations. That's the way it went for me. So I assume that's the way it's gone for everyone else who's been on this committee.
All right, given the amount of work that the committee does or has been forced to do, I think the chances of people being nominated and not approved are limited. I think the more useful practice is to press gang them into the committees. So, thank you. If you have further questions, this is the last call. Either write them down or send them in to Steve if you think of the things. As far as I understand, the text of almost of all of the changes are printed in the warrant. So you have a printed copy and there's electronic copies available through Mary Ellen's office and the town website if you want to do that. I want to thank everybody for participating tonight. I think we've been achieving what we've heard during the communications study, which is that town meeting members needed to hear more about the changes and proposals before they get to town meeting. And the committees benefit by hearing questions and finding things they've overlooked or things that need additional work. More work is always good. I'm certain of things like that. But I think this has been very useful and we probably continue. We have several more of these InfoCasts, we've dubbed them, scheduled tomorrow night. Philip Prataroli has volunteered to give us an overview of the warrant. I don't think he's interested in arguing specific articles, but how's the warrant set up? What's the order? How do we consider them? And somewhat of an extension to what we did with the orientation session where Philip, Mary Ellen and town council came in to give new members a brief overview of how town meeting works. To answer questions about how town meeting works, whether you're a new member or a veteran member and you'd like to understand the arcane business of procedures in town meeting, this will be your opportunity tomorrow to ask him. He's been reading up on all the details of it, so it hopefully is memorized. And then on the 28th and the 30th, Paras Mayani has volunteered to again give an update on the state of the town work. So we're planning to do the same thing we did last time. There'll be a session 1 and a session 2. By and large, they'll be identical, but we're assuming that not everybody can make one session or the other. So if you miss one, you can tune into the second one and do that. So there are also a series of hearings going on. The town manager's public hearing is on the 29th. That's starting at 6, I believe. Our annual meeting will be starting a little bit later as a result, but we are going to open the doors at Lynch at around 6. From 6 to 7, Michael believes that we can do a repeat of the WinCam broadcast with town meeting members. And if you want to listen to the town manager's public hearing, come at 6 and we'll try to put that up on the screen there. From 7 to around 7:30 or so, Andrew Marone and folks from the school committee have volunteered to conduct tours of the Lynch School. If you haven't been in it, it's a pretty spectacular building and it's all nice and clean and new now. So it's worth looking at where your tax dollars went and how they're going to be used. And then about 7:30, 7:45, we'll start a business meeting. We, by our bylaws, have an annual meeting every year. I think it's going to be very brief, but we'll basically talk to you about what we've done, what we've learned, and ask people, what can we do that's smarter and more effective in getting information out to people in the coming year? So that will be the critical piece. We hope to have it all done somewhere toward 8:15, 8:30, so you don't have to stay up terribly late, prepare for Halloween for that. So thank you again very much, people on if there's any questions, let us know. And Steve, and
I throw in
Yeah.
one more word, just if anybody is interested in the state of the town and isn't going to be able to make any of those other meetings tomorrow night from 7:30 on, Paras and Michelle Pryor will be at the First House Pub for a slightly more informal presentation, but they're definitely there. Well, we're doing this for the Chamber of Commerce and the Chamber requested that we do it there, but it is open to anyone. So if you have questions, thoughts, concerns, that's going on tomorrow. So there's 3 opportunities coming up to get the same information.
I forgot to write down, but does your committee have another hearing going on this topic or planned meeting?
We are meeting this Thursday at 8 p.m.
Okay.
Then we will be participating in the town manager's public hearing on the 29th.
Okay. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.
There's an
Appreciate all your
additional,
help.
a number of people have written to thank this group so much for their good hard work. Mary Ellen particularly said that she appreciates taking the time, review the study and ask prior to the town meeting. This is going to make the town meeting run smoothly and allow time for proponents to get their answers researched in time for the debate. Great job.
Yeah, so I think this is a good forum for us to repeat. I know when I first joined town meeting, had a lot of questions about the bizarre things that people were proposing. But I was a little intimidated to stand up and ask a stupid question and be told, you're asking a stupid question. This is a much better forum to ask stupid questions and get good answers. So thank you all very much. Okay, good night. Thank you again.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.